Welcome to Uprising. Each episode looks inside what it takes to lead the most dynamic and successful cultural movements. Some of them in the business world, some in the social realm, some in politics, and some in between. To see why people start uprisings, what gives those initiatives momentum and keeps them going, and most important, what lessons can you learn from these movements and how to apply them to your business and even personal life. Let's explore the secret to sparking movements that move people into action.
Passionate ideas.
Controversial ideas.
Uprising ideas.
The power is now in the hands of anyone.
To start a cultural movement.
Your movement.
To move the world.
Sometimes you just say fuck it and throw a piano in the back of the truck and play your way down to Panama. Today we have a very special guest. We have Dotan Negrin, who is a one-man movement.
I realized, after years, many months of frustration, I realized, I want to do something for myself. I want to chase my own dreams rather than working for other people. And I took all the money I had in the bank.
What happened? What was that that spark that got you from thought to actually doing what you're doing? Something must have happened in 2010. Was there some sort of moment when you had like a flash of genius, or how does it actually come about?
What sparked it is, to answer the question, I started working for one of my dad's friends who was an artist. He was a painter and a photographer. Mm-hmm. He needed a driver to drive his artwork down to Miami for Art Basel. And this was January of 2010. And I was like, sure, I'll do it. So I got paid $500 to drive to Miami. And, I got paid. And after that, a friend of mine who was in Dominican Republic calls me up and he's like, come down to DR. You're it's just a short flight away. And I'm like, all right, well, I just made $500. Maybe I'll just fly to Dominican Republic. And so I flew to Dominican Republic, and it was the first time I left the country by myself.
Wow.
And I think that experience of being in...
What did your father tell you when you said, I'm going to go to do all this? What was his first words out of his mouth?
Well, because it was his friend. So he was like, all right, do this. Because I was still kind of exploring. I didn't know what I was doing with my life. And my father is definitely a big part of my life and an influence. And he always puts the pressure on me. He's very good at putting the pressure of like, where's the money coming from? Right? That's kind of he's a businessman, and his philosophy is, make the money first and then do what you love. But that's kind of in my opinion, that's a backwards approach. And we live in different times now.
So this idea that you just talked about, this philosophy that you have, can you kind of talk a little bit about that? So what do you stand for? If you're giving advice to people when you're traveling, and basically you take a piano and you go to a different country and you play and meet people and open a dialogue with different cultures and different languages and different people, and just talk a little bit about what you actually do.
When I first started, I was I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what the hell I was doing with my life. I was lost. Really, I was just lost. And I was searching for something. And so I thought, I'm doing this thing for myself. I'm kind of I know this is going to be a great learning experience, and I'm going to be challenged in ways I've never been challenged before. In ways that most people never get challenged before. The reason why I came up with this idea was like, I was getting, originally I was working for that guy, the artist. I was getting paid to travel. I'm like, this is so cool. I can actually get paid to travel, mix work and play together. I spent 2 years doing work for other people and not really caring about it. But then I came up with this idea, is like, what if I could actually make money doing the things I love? Like, this is such a novel concept. Why aren't more people doing this? And so that's what kind of sparked the journey to pursue going after the things that I love while still being able to make money. So the things that I love are travel, music, meeting people. And so I figured, how can I make a living doing that? And so I kind of put all of that together. And the idea was that I'm going to be traveling the world, making money as I go by performing on the streets and doing gigs. And then meeting people, and people, inevitably people would invite me over their houses, or I just made friends everywhere I go. It was never a lonely experience, ever.
How does that change now? What is it now? Because you said you kind of evolved into a different sort of experience.
Whereas the first trip, I didn't make much money, but I learned that I can travel the world for free with the piano on that first trip. So the second trip, I actually made profit. So the third trip was like, oh, how can I do this without working for that other guy? So you'll see this progression that like every trip that I've done, I've added a challenge or a layer, or like what's the function of this? How am I going to challenge myself, or what am I going to do differently to make this better? With the main goal being, how can I live my life doing the things I love every day? So this third trip was the $2 road trip, where I started with $2 and 1 gallon of gas in New York. I made like $150 playing on the streets, filled up my cooler with food and my tank with gas, and then I hit the road. And I did a month of travels, went into Canada, Quebec, went to Boston.
That's great.
New York, and I came back with $2,500 profit.
Wow.
I did gigs and all that. It was great.
That's fantastic.
My fourth trip was, so this is where it starts to change. My fourth trip was, you know what, I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to say, it goes back to that, sometimes you say fuck it and go travel down to Panama. I'm like, I want to go, America's cool. I went into Canada. Like, I want to go to other countries now. So it's like the only other place other than north is going south. So I was like, I'm going to do something really freaking crazy, and I'm going to drive from New York to Panama. And I'm either going to sell the car in Panama, or I might continue down to Colombia, or I don't even know what I'm going to do. But the idea is I'm going to go to Panama. I'll figure it out from there. And so I saved up a bunch of money, and this is where I started getting into video. And so I hired a guy on Craigslist for a month on that trip to come down to like Guatemala with me, and we filmed a bunch of videos.
That's great.
And it was my first big like video production.
That's
Meanwhile,
fantastic.
I never went to school for production. I never went to school for music. I never went to school for traveling the world. All of this I was learning as I was doing through experience, and it was a disaster. But it was one of the greatest experiences of my life, and the most challenging. It was my biggest failure in my life. And I got sick 3 times. I got food poisoning. I got sun poisoning. I got robbed and lost $3,000 worth of equipment. It was great. And I learned so much. Not only that, I was learning Spanish. I was backpacking, and there was a time in that trip where I was a traveling bum, and I kind of just was living my life. But through that, I ended up getting sponsored by Goodyear Latin America.
So it sounds to me like, in a way, what you're basically telling us is that in life you've gotta basically get lost to be found, right?
That's part of it.
Yeah.
And it goes along with the way I've been living life in the last 5 years is really this. I've been really in the moment, taking, surveying the cards that life is dealing me now. Like, I have these cards. Let me see what these cards do. If one card doesn't work, then I'll go back a little bit. I'll try this card. And literally, I've been living life for the last 5 years like that, where it's super in the moment. I don't know where I'll be 5 months from now. Right. It's kind of hard for me to plan ahead that far in advance, unless someone has a good offer that is makes sense to me to do. Of course, it's obviously not just about the money. It's about the currency I've been dealing with is experiences and friends, really.
So how does a corporation like Goodyear Latin America, how did they come across you, and what was it about you that they felt was very inspiring? Apart from the fact that you're traveling a lot and they make wheels, and so wheels are a traveler, but there must be a deeper philosophy that they liked.
I don't know. It's interesting because I didn't really have a big social media presence at all at that time. I think what appealed to them is that what I was doing is just adventurous, and it's a kick-ass story. I mean, at the same time, I was on CNN, I was on national news on CNN, and that's how they discovered me.
What can your global music movement teach us about life?
I truly believe that it's the arts and music and theater. These things are more important than we think, even though they're being cut from schools and high schools. I think, I studied theater for many years, and one of the things, studying theater and doing scenes and monologues and understanding behavior and understanding what motivates a character, what's an objective of the character when they walk into a scene. It's taught me to really evaluate how I interact with people in a daily setting. Like, I'm always thinking about what's motivating people. So when they say something, I'm always evaluating why are they saying these things. And one thing I think music is so important is that it teaches. It's another way to connect with people, and it teaches people to be sensitive to another person, because you have to. It's a give and take when you're playing music with someone. You have to give and you have to take. You have to share.
Nice.
And these are really important things that people must learn. Whereas like business, it teaches, we're learning competition. You have to fight and be competitive. Where music for me is like, I'm not competing with this other pianist. I don't want to compete with you. I want to collaborate. We're speaking this language. The arts are so much more important than people realize. I mean, yes, most people see arts and theater, all this. These are entertainment, and I think about this. I'm like, I'm creating video. There's so much media content in the world right now, and a lot of it's just distraction. It's all just a distraction. But unless you're creating something that's really valuable, that's going to inspire young people or teach you something, then it's just another distraction, and I don't want to create distractions. I don't want to create any distractions.
It's very profound, this idea that music brings people together. Clearly it brings them together, but it brings them together in a way that they have to collaborate is actually something I never thought about. That's really, really interesting.
My belief, and this is again goes to my like life mission, is that I think if everybody played an instrument, I think this world would be such a different place, and people would be more open to connecting. But then again, traveling the world made me realize that they just want to connect.
Right. They just want to connect and be happy. When people follow you, whether it's in social media or they come out to meet you when you're traveling, what is it that they're inspired by? Why do they follow you?
I actually do believe that it's not necessarily the music that has really attracted people. It's funny to look at it now. Because I'm trying to bring more of the music into it. But I think in the past, in the last 4 or 5 years, it's been more about the act of doing that has inspired people, and especially young people who see me doing this and like struggling and going through these challenges. But I don't think, for me, this hasn't just been about the music. It's been more about the act of doing something really extraordinary with your life. And that's why I have this saying, you owe it to yourself to do something remarkable with your life.
I like that.
Yeah.
So how do you live that philosophy?
For me, living extraordinary is just doing anything outside of the norm. Like, I feel like most people live life doing things, this is the way things should be. Right. And anything outside of that, I think, is extraordinary. And so I say, forget what should be and just do things that feel true. And what I believe is to tap into that, to find out what's true, is really just tapping into what your instincts are telling you. I think the instincts are your instinct is like a very incredible resource that people are just not listening to anymore, because they're listening to their fears rather than their instincts.
When you are out traveling and you're exploring, you're growing, you're inspired, do you feel that when you meet people when you're traveling, that they also are growing because they meet you? Do you feel that there's a kind of sharing of growth? Yeah.
Yes, it's not even that I feel it. It's that I know it, because they send me messages. Well, that's cool. And they tell me, like, you inspired me to do this, or you inspired me to my parents are telling me to do, like, I get this message all the time. Like, my parents are telling me to do this, but I really want to just try this out. I'm like, then go try it. Do what makes you feel good. And
when you're out traveling, obviously you talk about being robbed and being, all these crazy things that you went through. What was the craziest thing that ever happened to you while you were out on your travels?
The best experiences have been moments where I'll meet someone on the street and they'll be like, "Hey, why don't you come over to my house and hang out with my family?" And then, the next day, here I am hanging out with 3 generations of this family on an island called Vinyl Haven Island off the coast of Maine. Right. And we're eating like fish that was caught that week, vegetables that grew in their garden. And it turned out it was a family reunion. This was in Maine. Yeah. 2012. And it turns out the whole family was musical. They all played instruments or sang.
That's beautiful. That's
great. And I ended up jamming with them. And then the older brother who played guitar, the younger brother who was the guy that I met on the street, he played drums. And they're like, "We're playing at the local bar. You should come hang out with us." I'm like, cool. I'm like, they surprised me with the keyboard. Wow. And they're like, "We want you to play a song with us." I'm like, "All right, cool." So I'll play one song. And I ended up playing a whole 4-hour gig.
Oh my God, that's
dancing
hilarious.
And sweating, getting drunk. And then at the end of the gig, the guy's like, here's $300. I'm like, why? I'm like, we played this gig with her. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know I was playing a gig.
That's hilarious. In a way, you kind of disprove whatever all the politicians tell us, that we have to be fearful of everybody. You're kind of disproving them that, in fact, everyone. It's actually really easy to meet people, and most people are actually really nice.
I just said yes to everything that happened those 2 days. I said yes to whatever that guy was telling me. Who he obviously seemed like a reasonable guy. He was also a musician, so again, it goes back to the idea: musicians have we speak this language, so it's almost like a instant camaraderie. And when you say yes, I just said yes to everything that came my way, and it led me to have all these amazing discoveries.
You're definitely setting the tone for a new generation, and that's highly
awesome.
Inspiring. So thank you so much for your time. It's been great listening to you. Are you able to direct us to any YouTube? On
YouTube, you could find me at Piano Around the World, and everywhere, really. You could type in Piano Around the World into Google, and you'll find everything.
That's fantastic.
But YouTube has been my main thing right now. It's bumping out videos and stuff.
Nice. Well, we're going to look at that, and I very much appreciate your time. It's been really great.
You too. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you for joining our Uprising today and listening to our show. If you missed the show, or if you want to find out more about who was on, or if you want to learn more about how to create your own Uprising, please go to uprisingmovements.com. You can also download this Uprising program from iTunes. Uprising was produced by Nicola Keneally and Adam Helen, with special help from Melanie Boardman, Karin Drachenberg, Philippa Freeman, Brianna Campbell, Fashad Faroudi, Mark Bruzy, Will Issam, James Politi, and Jonathan Weeks. My name is Scott Goodson, and you've been listening to Uprising. What we can learn about movements and uprisings that are shaping our world in business, in society, and in between. For more on cultural movements and movement marketing, be sure to pick up a copy of the best-selling book Uprising, How to Build a Brand and Change the World by Sparking Cultural Movements, available on Amazon.com.
Music for Uprising composed by Charles Duchateau.